Folding bikes are experiencing a renaissance right now, but at the moment it feels like there are kind of two extremes. On one side there are quite cheap and simple bikes that fold, and on the other side there are high quality and thoroughly optimized folding bikes that have been on the market for decades in some cases. Where does this bike fit into the overall picture? This here is the brand new Velo de Ville Foldy. Hey, I'm Tillman from the Radelbande, and in this video we're going to talk about what this bike can do and who it's best suited for. And at the end of the video, you'll also find out why USB-C charging isn't necessarily the same as USB-C charging. Velo de Ville lent us this bike, and they are financially supporting the production of the video. They didn't guide us on what to say, so all thoughts and statements are entirely my own or our own perspective. And they won't get to see the video before you have the opportunity to watch it for yourselves. We are completely manufacturer neutral. Velo de Ville is a bicycle manufacturer from Altenberge near Münster, offering a truly comprehensive portfolio of various e-bikes and regular bikes. We've already featured and showcased several cargo bikes from Velo de Ville on our channel, and now they've also introduced a folding bike. What's special about Velo de Ville, though, is the remarkably high level of configurability and customizability of their bicycles. And that's also the case with the Foldy. While most manufacturers offer 1 or 2, maybe 3 colors to choose from, you can pick your Foldy's color from 17 different options and then also decide whether you want it matte or glossy. That's really quite unusual for a volume manufacturer. By the way, this is Night Blue, a no-cost color that complements the Radelbande perfectly and looks absolutely stunning in any light. But it doesn't stop with the color. Also, tech-wise, you can choose quite a few things. First of all, you can decide whether you want the Foldy with a motor or without one. It's your decision. And if you want it with a motor, then you can choose between a chain drive system or a single-speed setup option. If you want it without a motor, you can choose between a hub gear system, a derailleur, or again, a single speed. And then you can also make a choice between a chain for the single speed and hub versions, or alternatively select a belt drive system. And that's all pretty cool and unique, but what's even more interesting is the overall construction of the frame set right here. Because the people at Velo de Ville didn't just look at other bikes and think, we'll do it the same way, but instead they created their entirely unique design. And one of the focal points was that as many people as possible should be able to ride it. To achieve that, they used a 2-part seat post, which has a lot of potential, especially towards the lower section. And to ensure a comfy seat for many, there's also an adjustable stem and handlebar, which rises quite high, and for the folding mechanism. You don't need any special training or expertise. First of all, you pull on the lever down here, and then the rear wheel is unlocked, and you can easily swing it forward like this. At some point, it's just a motion. You do it with a nice amount of momentum and swing. Then the front wheel smoothly snaps into a position where it naturally stays firmly and securely in place without shifting. The second step is that you can then fold down the handlebar here. Pull the lever, fold it over, and then fold it away, securing it firmly in its place. Then there are 2 straps available, one located here to securely fasten the handlebar in place, and then another one here with fidlock to firmly fix the frame parts together. And now you can basically lift the bike or just effortlessly push it around the area with very minimal effort required. At least when the ground is a bit more even, which it usually tends to be the case at train stations, for example. And if you're aiming for the smallest packing size, simply slide the seat post down here. Secure it. And now you can easily pick it up. The packing size is now about 38 by 65 by 110 centimeters. It's definitely not the most compact folded size, but it's designed in such a way that you can easily pick it up now, and none of the parts wobble or shift around. It's a really stable and secure package overall, which is great. And if we unfold it now, it also works really quickly. First, pull up the seat post again until it reaches the maximum point. It's about here. Then collect the two straps once again and raise the handlebar up. And the bike is unfolded and ready to ride again. It's all done pretty quickly and without much effort. Oh, I forgot the pedal. Now, the frame essentially consists of two parts. Once there's the triangle here at the front and then the triangle here at the back. What's really fascinating though is how these parts are connected to each other. Right here, a hinge is essentially clamped onto the front frame section, allowing it to pivot smoothly. The bottom bracket, on the other hand, is positioned within the pivoted rear section. As a result, the chain remains at the correct length and stays consistently taut, whether the bike is folded or fully extended. And Velo de Ville didn't hesitate to include disc brakes in this model, which generally require significantly more space than traditional rim brake configurations. At the rear wheel, they didn't have many options. Given that the motor is supposed to be installed here, this is a completely standard width. But at the front wheel, they decided on a super narrow hub to achieve a slim installation width, even with this disc brake incorporated, ensuring the overall design remains streamlined, compact, and highly efficient. And another technical feature due to the 16-inch wheels is, of course, that a derailleur system is somewhat restricted in its functionality. But here, Velo de Ville decided to go with a Shimano Tourney derailleur featuring an especially short cage design. However, of course, these 16-inch wheels are really super compact for a chain drive system, so the cage still ends up being a bit longer and extends slightly over the rim, as you might naturally expect. However, they have already thought about using as short a derailleur as possible, and then the bike appears extremely long. And it truly is, because thanks to this specific design, it has a wheelbase of 106 centimeters, which is roughly equivalent to my gravel bike in extra large frame size. And accordingly, it should ride very smoothly and feel stable on the road. We'll take a closer look at that shortly. Thanks to this design, the battery is also elegantly positioned here behind the seat tube, neatly tucked within the frame triangle between the seat tube and the rear wheel. And in the non-motorized version, it provides room for a water bottle or a small pouch, something along those lines. Here, specifically designed for the small MAHLE battery, the entire system gets powered on. With a press here on top of the battery, you can then change the modes with another press here. All the way up to the highest, of course. The battery level can be checked using this bar, though it's not the most precise method to measure it accurately, of course. But there's also an additional option you can configure for that purpose, namely the small Bluetooth display. It can be turned on with a simple press here and instantly shows the current time. And then it also displays all the necessary information. Up here, the battery level is clearly shown with a percentage indication as well. The available range, the total distance traveled up to this point, and the current speed are all clearly displayed as well. And then here you have the option to cycle through the different support modes ranging from off up to level 3, depending on your preference. The display is overall quite simple and basic, but it clearly shows all the essential information you need. Otherwise, with a folding bike, you occasionally need to carry something, and that's where the standard rear rack comes into play. It's quite long, featuring these 4 wheels designed for smooth and effortless pushing, and it can carry a load of up to 10 kilograms. This can be done either with this funky spring flap here or with a MIK interface, which is designed to accommodate even really large baskets with ease. That's really unusual in the folding bike category. However, it's also the case that this rack simultaneously serves as the kickstand. That's why I've been leaning the bike the entire time, so we can fully take in and admire it in all its glory. Because only then can it stand freely, and it honestly doesn't look much like a bike at all anymore, but more like a transformer. But now let's see how it rides, and I didn't bring any extra luggage because I'm already relatively heavy, and we've got the cameras and stuff mounted on it. What I did change, though, is that I've mounted my smartphone here, since the MAHLE system also comes with its own dedicated companion app included. And it can do various things. First, you can control your e-bike with it, monitor the battery level, track your activities, sync it with Strava, and explore different routes that you've tracked. You can stay updated with the latest news from the MAHLE universe and naturally dive deeper into all the details about statistics and more. But for us, the riding screen is especially interesting, of course. Let's have a look. And here we see a wide variety of information. Range is 1,166 kilometers right now. Unbelievable. Though the engine is also turned off, and here we can just display all the information about if we have a heart rate sensor connected, etc. Also, calories, speed, e-bike power output, rider performance. I find all of those features quite fascinating. Then internal battery and external battery, so when two battery packs are connected. How many watt hours are still in the battery, in this case battery voltage, so quite a lot of information, including here also GPS, which enables you to track a route, and then of course connect to your heart rate monitor for real-time feedback and detailed performance analysis. And what you can also do here is adjust and carefully fine-tune the various motor maps as needed. We've currently got the standard mode set up here, and we'll go ahead and leave it unchanged for the time being. We have the ability to fine-tune peak performance, acceleration, and responsiveness, tailoring them precisely to our personal needs and preferences. For example, here in sport mode, it looks quite different compared to eco mode, where, for instance, there's high peak performance but noticeably less responsiveness and a much smoother overall riding experience. And in sport mode, there's a very high peak performance along with a very high level of responsiveness. So, we'll simply leave it in this mode because that's precisely how Velo de Ville delivers the product to its customers. All right, let's get started. First up, of course, is the acceleration test. And for that, we're now switching to the highest support level. Level 3, the range is going to drop significantly again here. So now we're in the lowest gear. Let's get going and see how it rides. And it's really astonishing how quickly we're now accelerating up to 25 kilometers per hour already. So this motor doesn't have the slightest issue whatsoever with a small bike, even when I'm sitting on it with my weight of nearly 100 kilograms. And it accelerates you very quickly and gradually up to 25 kilometers per hour, even if you forget to shift down. The motor is relatively quick there and can compensate for it. So I also think that depending on where you live, the single-speed option might actually be a very practical and solid choice for you. For sure, you notice the motor is completely silent. Even though it doesn't have a torque sensor, it genuinely feels like it does, which enhances the overall smoothness and natural feel of the ride experience. Now let's take a look at how it is on the hill, or rather on the mighty mountain. We'll aim to pedal around 200 watts, nothing beyond that. Now here we can just see how much power the bike is actually delivering. How much I'm putting out isn't visible, of course, because, as mentioned, it doesn't have a torque sensor. But now 21.8 kilometers per hour was our base speed. I need to downshift. 18. 17.6 kilometers per hour. Pedaling a cadence of around 70 to 80 rotations per minute, and at about 17 kilometers per hour, the bike carries me up here. So it's definitely not a bike designed for big mountain stages, but even on the lower end there was still plenty of range left to handle, even some steeper climbs quite comfortably and without any struggle. The bike also handles edges remarkably well, thanks to the small yet thick tires it's equipped with. And then the acceleration happens very comfortably again. Now from the side view, you might be able to see it. It's obviously a very small bike and I'm relatively tall, and this here, what I've just installed, isn't the standard seat post. It's actually from a different folding bike model, because the standard one is way too short for someone of my height and build. But now, in terms of riding, it's very inconspicuous. I have a fairly sporty seating position, obviously due to my high seat height, but the handlebars aren't fully extended either. If I let go of the handlebars, there's a bit of wobbling, but overall it's easily manageable and remains stable and under control. The fact that you're sitting on a fairly small bike is noticeable through the narrow handlebars and the very sharp, responsive way it steers. The bike actually accelerates really well. But the great thing about this lightweight bike and this lightweight concept is that you can also ride excellently without motor assistance. The 7-speed chain drive has enough gears. It's also worth mentioning it's really an affordable gear set, but it still works sufficiently well. If this was my bike, I'd probably take another good look in the direction of microshift. And we are on gravel. Well, and here the tires are naturally a bit of the limiting factor. They are thick, but they have a relatively small circumference. But the grip remains sufficient in most scenarios, though it does tend to slip quite easily here, much like many other bikes that are designed with smaller wheels. But now we've finally reached the point where we're carefully evaluating how it handles starting on a steep incline. Lowest gear, highest support level. Yes, let's try again. All right, the motor needs about half to one full crank rotation to register, okay? Someone wants to go. It also picks up speed quickly and smoothly without the motor. And in that case, the smallest gear is actually sufficient. However, if you're dealing with steep terrain or often need to start on inclines, then opting for a slightly lighter gear ratio would make things much more comfortable and manageable. The frame is very stiff even when you pull on it a bit. Then there's naturally a bit of movement here from the stem, but it's all very manageable. Let's see how this small bike manages some rumbling over the edge and onto the cobblestone. And here you can hear that the Foldy is actually quite free of rattling noises. That's where the long wheelbase really makes a noticeable difference once again. It feels somewhat like a long tail since a significant portion of the frame is positioned behind me. It's comfortable, and the tires absorb most of the bumps and shocks. But even edges like these don't cause the bike to bounce or anything. Instead, it handles them very reliably and rolls over smoothly enough without any noticeable problems. Is it a comfort miracle? Nah, definitely not, but even something like this doesn't disturb its composure at all. So what I'm curious about now is if we go here, into the engine control, engine maps, and then actually take this sport mode. Curious to see how it accelerates and if there's a noticeable difference here. Oh yeah. So the engine now clearly delivers significantly more power at lower RPM. Right now the acceleration felt even more powerful. But let's take a closer look at how it handles braking. And we're accelerating now to 25 kilometers per hour, then we'll do a full brake and we'll stop at the second line.
Und jetzt.
That feels good. We don't need to make a big deal out of it, but for sure the brakes have a really solid and responsive feel. They deliver more than enough pressure, and honestly they outperform all rim brakes in terms of stopping power. You have to say, yeah. And what truly amazes me is that it's not a torque-controlled system, yet it still reacts in an incredibly sensitive and precise way to inputs. So if you pedal just slightly slower, the motor also provides just some little and slow assistance. So in terms of riding, it's quite good, but every so often you're reminded of those really unusually small wheels. Let's take a look now at our impression after a few weeks. We've been regularly using the Foldy for several weeks now. It accompanied Leah and me on our recent vacation trip to Zell am See in a small-ish camper van. It was with me in Cologne. I regularly rode it through the area in everyday life, and now I have a few thoughts on what this bike does well and what it doesn't do as well. You'll find a complete evaluation using the Radelbande rating matrix through the link below in the video description. Now let's take a look at 3 points that we really liked and 3 points that we weren't quite as impressed with overall. And we'll start with the latter, and we'll begin with the first point, which is the tipping stability. The bike should, of course, when folded, stand securely and steadily on the 4 small wheels located on the luggage rack. But then it wobbles relatively easily to the left and ends up resting on the handlebars, which isn't the most ideal or practical situation if you place it on the other side. It is set on the drivetrain, which is equally not ideal. So if you're transporting it in the car or on the train, it's best to secure it with some rope or straps to make sure it stays upright no matter what. The second point is, currently, the Foldy doesn't come with permanently installed lighting, not even in the electric version, and the lighting you can order separately. I'd definitely go for something else. It's only good as emergency lighting at best. And the third point, the MAHLE system wasn't fully developed, at least not on the test bike we used. Sometimes the bike didn't assist up to 25 kilometers per hour, sometimes the values in the app were completely erratic, and occasionally there was a bit of jerking with the assistance. But the biggest criticism is the USB-C charging. Yes, you heard right, as mentioned in the intro as well. This battery can be charged via USB-C, but not directly on the battery itself. Instead, you'll need to use this docking station to charge it properly. Why? Why do they do that? Why isn't this technology built directly into the battery pack itself, with a USB-C port already integrated into it right from the very beginning of the design process? It would be so straightforward. This isn't a critique of Velo de Ville, but rather aimed at MAHLE. Why do that? Well, but this bike has some good points, a few even. And now we want to take a look at 3. And the first one also relates to the MAHLE system, because it is fundamentally very well suited for this type of bike. It has surprisingly a lot of power, it's compact, it's pretty light, and with this 171 watt-hour battery pack, you can easily go 20 to 25 kilometers even in the highest level of assistance, depending on the terrain and your own effort, etc. And in the lower assistance levels, you can definitely go quite a bit further than that, no problem. So overall, it's a good motor system with a few minor flaws. The second point that we really liked was the balanced and smooth ride quality. Thanks to the long wheelbase, it rides very comfortably, has a good straight line stability, but still remains very agile. So you can still get into turns quickly, you can weave through everywhere, also thanks to the narrow handlebar. And both Leah and I, when I once installed a longer seat post, had a super comfortable and ergonomic seating position overall. And the third good point that we want to highlight is that a bike which can handle even heavier riders well, a maximum total weight of 130 kilograms is genuinely impressive for a folding bike in such a small package. It also features this large luggage rack, which is highly practical for everyday use and includes these mounts with 3 attachment points for bottle holders, locks, etc. So you don't have to carry them separately. So in terms of practicality and durability, we also really like that. But who is it best suited for at this point? You should definitely take a closer look at this slide if you're not taller than 6 feet 2 inches and value a straightforward folding process. It doesn't necessarily have the smallest folded size, but it's still very practical for everyday use, fits into most car trunks, and also into the luggage compartments on the train, for example. So for multimodal use, it's definitely suitable. It's also the right bike for you if you're simply looking for one that you can customize individually. Just the wide range of colors is already a big plus. And it's also worth mentioning that compared to many other electric folding bikes with slightly more complex folding mechanisms, it's still very competitively priced for its features. What's your take on the Velo de Ville Foldy? Drop your thoughts in the comments. YouTube is really keen for you to check out this video right now. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now. See you soon.